Our story today is about one of the most powerful and influential families in the history of the United States, the Rockefeller family. Imagine this, a man who, from nothing, built an empire so vast that it controlled up to 90% of a core industry. His name was John D. Rockefeller Sr. Depending on how it's calculated, John D. Rockefeller is often considered the richest person in modern history. If measured as a percentage of the US economy at the time, his fortune would equal over $400 billion, more than any modern billionaire. When we mention Rockefeller, we immediately think of oil, immense wealth, or massive charitable foundations. But do you truly understand the ruthless strategies that allowed him to dominate the market, the earth-shattering legal battle with the US government that seemed to have defeated him, and great business paradox that made him wealthier than ever after being forced to break up his empire? Today, we will embark on a fascinating historical journey exploring how one man shaped the American economy and influenced how the world operates to this day.
John D. Rockefeller was born in 1839 into a modest family in Richford, New York. His father, William Avery Rockefeller, was a traveling medicine salesman with a flamboyant, sometimes deceitful personality, often absent from home. His mother, Eliza Davison Rockefeller, was a devout, hardworking, and frugal woman. It was she who instilled in John the core values of diligence, thrift, and piety. From a young age, John displayed remarkable qualities. He was not an outstanding student, but he had an extraordinary sensitivity to money. As a teenager, he was already saving every penny, lending money with small interest rates, and meticulously keeping track of his expenses. He is famously quoted as saying, "I was raised to work, to save, and to give." The first turning point came when he was 16 years old. After a brief period of studying bookkeeping, he landed his first job as an assistant bookkeeper at a small agricultural products company in Cleveland, Ohio. It was here that he learned valuable lessons about how a business operates, the importance of cash flow and costs. More importantly, he learned how to view numbers in terms of efficiency and profit. In the mid-19th century, a new fever swept across America: oil. In 1859, Edwin Drake drilled the first oil well in Titusville, Pennsylvania, ushering in a new era of energy. However, the oil market at the time was chaotic. Hundreds of small refineries sprang up like mushrooms, engaging in cutthroat competition with wildly fluctuating prices. John D. Rockefeller saw a golden opportunity not in extracting crude oil, but in refining and transporting it efficiently and systematically. In 1863, he invested in a small refinery, and later, in 1870, he officially founded the Standard Oil Company. Rockefeller's vision was clear, not just to refine oil, but to control the entire supply chain, from the oil fields to the consumer. He understood that to stabilize a volatile industry, centralized control was necessary. Standard Oil's strategy is a classic example of vertical and horizontal integration. He began acquiring or partnering with other refineries. His tactics, which later became the subject of much controversy, included secret deals with railroads. Standard Oil negotiated extremely favorable transportation rates, far lower than those of its competitors. They even received rebates from railroads, sometimes including a portion of the fees collected on oil shipped by their competitors, a tactic that gave them an overwhelming advantage. Eventual acquisition or coercion of competitors. Rockefeller would offer to buy out smaller refineries. If they refused, he would use his transportation and scale advantages to lower prices, driving competitors into bankruptcy and forcing them to sell to him at rock-bottom prices. Standard Oil didn't just refine oil. They produced barrels, built their own pipelines, controlled storage facilities, and managed distribution networks. Every aspect was under their control, minimizing costs and maximizing profits. Within less than a decade, Standard Oil had acquired or eliminated most of its competitors. By the early 1880s, the company controlled over 90% of U.S. oil refining and dominated much of the oil distribution network. This was an unprecedented monopoly, and its power began to shake the nation. Standard Oil's absolute dominance was both impressive and deeply infuriating. The American public and government grew increasingly concerned about the concentrated power of one individual and one company. Investigative journalists, known as muckrakers, those who expose societal and business issues, turned their focus to Standard Oil. The most prominent among them was Ida Tarbell, a tenacious female journalist. Her father had been a victim of Standard Oil's competitive tactics. Tarbell spent years researching and exposing the company's operations in her groundbreaking book, The History of the Standard Oil Company, published in 1904. The book shocked the public, revealing the ruthless and unethical tactics Rockefeller used to build his empire. It transformed Rockefeller from a relatively unknown business magnate into a symbol of greed and monopolistic power. Public and political pressure mounted. The U.S. government launched antitrust investigations. The culmination came in 1906 when the U.S. Department of Justice filed a lawsuit against the Standard Oil Trust under the Sherman Antitrust Act, a law enacted to curb monopolistic practices. The legal battle was long and arduous. Finally, on May 15, 1911, the U.S. Supreme Court issued its ruling. The Standard Oil Trust must be dismantled. The court concluded that Standard Oil had violated antitrust laws and needed to be broken up into 34 independent companies. It might seem like a massive defeat for John D. Rockefeller, but the reality was the complete opposite. This is one of the greatest paradoxes in American business history. Although forced to break up, Rockefeller and his shareholders still held stakes in all 34 new companies. And when these companies were no longer bound by the monopolistic structure, they began competing with each other and thriving more than ever. The stock value of these subsidiaries skyrocketed, and John D. Rockefeller's net worth grew exponentially. He became the richest person in world history at the time, with a fortune estimated at approximately $400 billion USD in today's value, surpassing any modern billionaire. Ironically, the government's effort to curb his power inadvertently made him wealthier. Standard Oil didn't die. It was reborn into the many oil giants we know today, such as ExxonMobil, Chevron, Marathon Petroleum, and others, all of which trace their origins to Rockefeller's original empire. An essential aspect of the Rockefeller family is their immense philanthropic legacy. This often surprises people, as John D. Rockefeller Sr.'s historical image is often tied to ruthlessness and monopoly. However, he was also one of the greatest philanthropists of all time. He believed that God had granted him wealth to do good, and he took that belief seriously. Rockefeller began his philanthropic efforts early, deeply influenced by his Baptist faith. However, the scale of these efforts became enormous in his later years. He didn't just give away money. He applied the same efficient, analytical, and long-term business principles to his philanthropy. His notable philanthropic endeavors include founding the University of Chicago in 1890. With substantial initial and ongoing funding, Rockefeller turned an idea into one of the world's leading academic and research institutions, producing countless Nobel laureates and groundbreaking scientific discoveries. Establishing the Rockefeller Institute for Medical Research in 1901. Now, the Rockefeller University, this institute was one of the first and most significant biomedical research centers in the U.S. It contributed to the development of the yellow fever vaccine, polio research, and many other medical advancements that have saved millions of lives worldwide. Founding the Rockefeller Foundation in 1913, this was the pinnacle of his philanthropic career and one of the largest and most influential private charitable foundations in the world. The foundation operates not only domestically but globally, focusing on public health, combating diseases like yellow fever, hookworm, and malaria in many countries. Education, supporting universities and research institutes worldwide. Agricultural science played a pivotal role in the Green Revolution, particularly through its Mexican Agriculture Program, MAP, starting in 1943. Green Revolution was an initiative that significantly increased crop yields, particularly for wheat and rice, saving hundreds of millions from starvation in developing countries. It's worth pondering the true motives behind these philanthropic actions. Were they merely an effort to improve his public image and cleanse the controversies from his monopolistic business practices? Or were they a genuine shift in awareness and a desire to contribute to society? Perhaps both. Regardless, it cannot be denied that the enormous sums he and his family donated have created lasting and positive impacts, shaping the fields of healthcare, education, and science as we know them today. John D. Rockefeller Sr. passed away in 1937 at the age of 97, but the story of the Rockefeller family didn't end there. Subsequent generations continued his legacy, not only in financial terms, but also in social and political influence. John D. Rockefeller Jr., his only son, carried on the philanthropic work and built the iconic Rockefeller Center in New York City, a symbol of architecture and commerce. His grandsons, particularly Nelson Rockefeller and David Rockefeller, rose to the highest echelons of power in politics and finance, which we will explore in greater depth in the next podcast episode. The Rockefeller family is a complex symbol of American capitalism. They represent the ruthlessness of unbridled competition, but also pioneered the use of wealth to create large-scale positive change. They proved that an individual, a family with wealth and vision could shape the destiny of a nation and even the world. They taught us that power lies in both earning money and using it to create change. The story of John D. Rockefeller and Standard Oil will forever be a classic lesson about the rise of industrial empires, the struggles for economic justice, and the fine line between business genius and market manipulation. Thank you, dear listeners, for joining us. In the next episode, we will explore the extraordinary life and influence of David Rockefeller, the grandson who brought the family's power into the 21st century, becoming a global banking magnate and a central figure in countless conspiracy theories. Don't miss it. Goodbye, and see you next time.